Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's #1 industrial automation product and technology show. Thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of our audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. Now, for those new to the show, my name is Shawn of Insights in Automation, and each week I invite a new vendor on the show to tell us about their products and technologies. And during their presentation, I play the role of the audience, asking questions I think you have, and as you guys know, sometimes questions I have as well. Now, given that over a quarter of our audience listens to the show, doesn't watch it, just listens, I'll also try to call attention to any details in the visuals that I think you listen only folks may want to know about. So, with that said, this week I'm honored to have Chuck back on from Horner Automation. And they got a brand new release. We've been covering it on the morning show. They've been having all these live streams about Cscape 10. And so we're delighted to have you guys back on. Thank you so much, Chuck, for coming back on. And I'm just excited. So, but before we jump into it, I guess for maybe some of the audience didn't catch the first episode. So could you just give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm Chuck Ridgeway, the Automation Technology Manager at Horner. So what is an Automation Technology Manager? Well, basically, over the course of my career at Horner, and I've been there 30 years, I've been a product manager, I've been an application engineer, I am technical. These days, I'm kind of a technical brand ambassador, I guess. So I'm heavily involved in those live streams that you've been promoting on the morning show, weekly live streams every Tuesday. I go to trade shows, I get in front of customers. It's just a fun existence for me these days.
Well, that's awesome. And, it's nice having, it's nice having something to talk about every week. And so you're one of those companies, those automation companies that are doing something. You're out there. It's just like not crickets for months at a time. And so we appreciate that. I know the audience appreciates that. And so what's the news? What have you been talking about? I kind of already mentioned it, but what's the big news this summer with your company?
Sure. So we have two big product introductions that we've done. We did them at the end of June. The first is a big new software release, Cscape 10. Cscape is our programming software for our all-in-one controller products. And then the other big product introduction is Canvas, which is the new high-end controller, the highest end of our controller line, at least, from Horner. So an all-in-one controller that we're going to tell you all about today is Canvas.
Oh, I'm excited. So let me just turn it right back to you.
Okay, so before we dive into the presentation, I'm going to make Shawn wait just a couple minutes more because some of you aren't as familiar with Horner as you might be with Rockwell or Siemens or some of those other companies. So effectively, Horner Automation, who are we? Well, we are a U.S. manufacturer of automation products. No, we're not a systems integrator. We manufacture all-in-one controllers, otherwise known as PLC plus HMIs. Our brand name is OCS, which stands for Operator Control Station. And one of the reasons we're not as well known is because, a lot of our OEM customers put their name on the front of our products. So it's their product, which we love, but it kind of keeps us in the background a little bit. So we're not always front and center. Couple other things you should know about us before I dive into Cscape 10 and Canvas. We are a US-based company based in Indianapolis, Indiana. But we do have a worldwide footprint. So we have major offices in Cork, Ireland for Europe, and also in Bangalore, India. We've got customers all over the globe. We are a family-owned business, but we're not tiny. We're a good-sized company, but of course, we're not huge like Siemens or Rockwell. And a lot of our products are manufactured in the USA. Not all of them, but we certainly design all of our own hardware and our software, and we do some partnering like a lot of automation companies do. So that's some things you should know about Horner. Some things you should know about our product category before we dive into the specifics of Canvas and Cscape 10. Again, what we're known for are all-in-one controllers. That's what we call them. Some people call them, a PLC plus HMI, but it's really just, for all intents and purposes, it's a PLC that has a lot more built into it, right? So it's got a screen built into it for operator interface. It's got I/O, local and remote if you want it, all kinds of networking and communications, and we have a single free software package that we're also going to talk about today, Cscape 10 being the latest version that's used to program our controller. So again, one component that does a whole lot in applications, all kinds of different industries, with a single software package to program it. So that's kind of what we are and what we make in terms of products, if you will. All right, you ready to dive into Cscape and Canvas there, Shawn?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go. All right, so if you take a look at our all-in-one controller lines, or our PLC plus HMI lines, we have three major lines. So our entry-level product line is called Micro OCS. So for any simple machine, simple application, the Micro OCS is going to be a great choice because it's very cost-effective, but very capable. Kind of the bread and butter of our product line is our XL series, which was just updated to the XL Prime, and it can pretty much handle just about any machine control application out there. But the latest controller line, and the one that I'm going to talk about today, which is our new high end, if you will, is called Canvas. And what makes Canvas unique is what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so what is it about Canvas that makes it different from our other all-in-one controllers, and maybe different from our competition's all-in-one controllers, or even PLCs for that matter? So first of all, there are three primary differentiators with Canvas when you compare it with other all-in-one controller lines, specifically, or definitely when you compare it with our other lines from Horner. So first of all, we have something called an advanced graphics engine. So one of the things we really wanted to amp up with Canvas was the graphics capabilities, the graphics objects and tools available to system designers when they're programming our product, when they're configuring their machine using the graphics available in Cscape 10. We wanted to amp that up a bit. So we have a completely new advanced graphics engine, and a lot of the graphics objects have been kind of rewritten from the ground up with new capabilities and just a whole lot of, from a graphic standpoint there. Now, to make sure those graphics run well and they don't have a negative impact on the logic, because let's face it, any PLC type application needs to have rock solid logic scans. So Canvas also features a dual core microprocessor, which means you have a dedicated core for those advanced graphics and another core that's used for the logic and the networking. So regardless of what you do on the graphics side, no matter how sophisticated it gets, it has really no impact on your logic scan. So that's a really big deal. And then the third differentiator is that we've included a lot of IoT functionality that are kind of options with some of our other products. We've included that as standard with Canvas. And I'll go into a little more detail about what those entail here in a minute. As we look at the different models that are available within the Canvas family, there are 5 different configurations, and really the most obvious difference between individual models are the screen size. But regardless of the screen size, all the units feature that dual core microprocessor I talked about. They all have the IoT features. And what do those IoT features entail? Well, so we start with MQTT spark plug. So that's a really popular way these days to push data from the factory floor, maybe to the cloud, maybe to a server, maybe up to a internet-based SCADA type system like Inductive Automation's Ignition. But it's a very popular way to push data these days. And so Canvas includes support for MQTT spark plug as standard. Also, if you want to do remote monitoring and remote control of your machine through the Canvas OCS, that feature at Horner is called WebMI, and Canvas includes a new advanced version of WebMI for remotely monitoring your machine and controlling your machine, over the internet, if that's what you want to do, or maybe just elsewhere in the plant. Depends on the application, of course. And then another enhancement that Canvas offers, first of all, any of our controllers, any of our PLC plus HMI products have always had the capability of being programmed from a logic standpoint, either in typical American style ladder or in the full IEC type programming set. And so customers who are using Cscape kind of make that choice when they create a new project. Now, for those who are fans of IEC, with Canvas, we have what we call enhanced IEC. So some of the more advanced features that are available in our IEC package, including simulation and some advanced debugging tools like breakpoints, those are also included as standard with Canvas. So those are kind of the things that differentiate Canvas from our other products, for instance. Now, when we talk about graphics with Canvas, mostly what we talk about is the graphics objects that system designers can use as they're creating their applications, things like trends and recipes and those sort of objects. However, it also includes, some built-in graphics as well for things like, the system menu or the system recovery screens. So if you're doing a routine task, maybe you're changing the IP address of the unit or you're loading a new program from a memory card or something, you're going to notice that the graphics built into the unit are significantly different than what you may have seen from Horner in the past, which were more kind of text-based menus, if you will. Another big difference is that Canvas supports simple gestures. Now, it's not a capacitive touchscreen, so you're not going to be doing pinching and zooming, but for things like swiping from screen to screen, scrolling up and down within an object or between objects, maybe rotating, a virtual knob, those are all simple gestures that are supported in Canvas, even though it still has a standard industrial rated type resistive touchscreen. Okay, now let's kind of get into the individual models within Canvas. And as I mentioned before, there are 5. Now we're going to start kind of with the entry-level point in Canvas. Remember, Canvas is our high-end product at Horner, but this would be the entry-level model for Canvas. And that's what we call the Canvas 5. So the Canvas 5 has a 4.3-inch diagonal screen, touchscreen, of course. It has 12 I/O built into it as standard. So you don't, specify the I/O from the factory. If you order a Canvas 5, it comes with 12 I/O. It's got 4 digital in, including high-speed counting, 4 digital out, including high-speed output capability, and then 4 analog inputs. And it also has the other typical type ports you would see from any Horner controller. It's got a CAN port for field bus support, things like CAN open and our own proprietary protocols, as well as things like J1939 for those mobile applications. It's got an Ethernet port, of course, for the most typical industrial protocols like Ethernet IP and Modbus TCP. It's got memory card support, micro SD for maintaining the unit, as well as data logging and recipe management and those sorts of things. Yes, it still has serial ports because there are still serial devices out there that need to be communicated to. And it has a pair of USB ports, one of which is a USB host port, which can be used for a variety of things, including adding a Wi-Fi interface to the unit. So all of the Canvas units are supported, or they can support Wi-Fi through an optional $179 Wi-Fi option from Horner, which just plugs right into the USB port and installs in your enclosure through a 22 millimeter type push button hole. So that's a very cool option that you can use with USB on any Canvas unit, including the Canvas 5. Now, as we step up into the other products in the product line, one of the big differences with the last 4 that we're going to talk about, the next 4 in the product lineup, is that you have more I/O options built in. With that Canvas 5 unit, there's 12 I/O, and that's what's available. With all the rest of the units, you have the option of ordering when you specify the unit as part of your purchase order. You have the option of specifying one of 5 different I/O options for built-in I/O. And it can be anywhere from 22 built-in I/O points all the way up to 42 built-in I/O points. All the options include digital and analog, so you don't have to choose there. And you also actually do have a choice of 0 built-in I/O if you want all of your I/O in the system to be remote, for instance. It can be local, it can be remote, it can be both. And then the same types of ports I talked about with the Canvas 5 are also available in the 4 and the 7. Now, one thing about the 4, it's actually physically smaller than the 5, but it's in a standardized quarter-DIN footprint. So that's been a really popular size at Horner for many, many years with our customers. So we thought it was important to carry that forward. And then the top 2 models in the product line are the 7D and the 10D. Now, the main differentiator here, of course, one being screen size, but the other is the D in these models stands for dual. So dual field bus ports and dual Ethernet ports. And these are completely separate ports. So in the case of Ethernet, they can be on 2 completely separate subnets. So what you would typically do, and what our OEMs most often do, is all the kind of machine Ethernet type communications that needs to go on, all those devices are talking through one Ethernet port. And then the other Ethernet port, they keep that one available for their customers to use to attach to the factory network. Or the plant network, if you will. So having dual Ethernet with two completely separate network adapters is a very popular feature at Horner, and the 7D and the 10D have that. One other thing I will mention, these two models also have an audio output port. What would you use an audio output port for? Well, maybe you might want to audibly cue an operator or audibly prompt an operator. And you could do that through an MP3 file that you could trigger from your Logic program or even trigger from the screen. That could play through a powered speaker, or it could even play through a PA system, for instance, in a plant or a warehouse. So that's an additional feature that the 7D and 10D also offer. Okay, so that's the lineup for Canvas. Now we're going to talk more specifics about some of these graphics features as we bring in and talk about Cscape 10. Okay, but in terms of availability, Canvas is available today. All models are built to order in Indianapolis, but our lead times are short. So 2 to 6 weeks is our standard lead time. And I think what you'll find is the lead times lean way closer to 2 than they do to 6. So again, everything's available from a Canvas standpoint for order today, and they'll be delivered within 2 to 6 weeks. Okay, now we're going to pivot and talk about Cscape 10. Now, Cscape is the free software package that we have developed at Horner and that we have continued to develop for really 20 plus years. And Cscape 10 is a major new release. Now, Cscape, the functionality of Cscape is the configuration package, the application configuration package for all of our all-in-one controller PLC plus HMI products. So all aspects of the application, the logic programming, the screen development, the network configuration, the I/O configuration, data logging, all of that recipe management, it's all done within Cscape, and Cscape is free, and Cscape 10 remains free as it moves to a major new revision. Now, if we just quickly want to summarize the categories of the types of changes that you will find in Cscape 10, you can really kind of categorize them into 3 different buckets. So first is a user interface update. So for those system designers that use Cscape on a regular basis, they're going to see that the desktop or the area or the way they interact with the software has been updated. We'll go through some of those changes. Another big change is the way that graphics are edited. Now, with Cscape 9 and earlier versions, embedded right into Cscape was the ability to edit your screen graphics. However, the screen graphic editor kind of took over total control of the package while graphics were being edited. With Cscape 10, graphics are developed right alongside logic in another tab. So that's a big change in Cscape, is the way you edit graphics. And then a lot of the graphics objects in Canvas have been redesigned from the ground up. So you'll find in Cscape 10 support for those brand new redesigned graphics objects, and we'll go through those as well. Okay, some of these features I'm just going to kind of run quickly through because frankly they're just, I want you to be aware of them, but they're not a huge deal. So for instance, one of the user interface changes is we now have a quick menu button. So you press that button, you can very quickly, open an existing project, start a new project, go in and adjust the settings in Cscape to maybe change some of the preferences of the desktop to the way you want it, those sorts of things. So that's the quick menu button. We've also changed from more of a strictly pull-down menu approach to a ribbon toolbar where the different commands are now subdivided into tabs and they're more accessible where you don't have to spend as much time, scrolling through different menus. There's more commands right there on the desktop where you want them because while you're editing your logic, you've got the logic tab up and all the commands you're probably going to be using there. When you switch to graphics, you'll probably switch over to the user interface tab and see all of those commands there as well. So just a reorganized way of accessing your commands. And then a great way to completely customize access to commands by the user is to utilize the quick access toolbar. So these are any command in Cscape. Every single one of them are available to be placed on the quick access toolbar in whatever order you want. If you only have 4 things you want on that toolbar, you can get rid of everything else. You can put them in whatever order you want. So you can very quickly stop the controller, download your program, access hardware configuration, all those sorts of things at the push of a button with things located where you want them. Okay, now let's talk about the way that graphics are edited in a little more detail than what I mentioned earlier on the summary screen. So again, with Cscape 9 and earlier versions, when you went to edit a graphical screen or a series of graphical screens, the graphics editor kind of took over the entire desktop. So you couldn't, edit logic without closing that graphics editor portion of Cscape first. With Cscape 10, whenever you're editing a new screen, it shows up as a tab right alongside another tab where you might have your main logic block, you might have a subroutine or user-defined function block that you're working on. So it's really right alongside everything else. And then you've got a host of other graphics tools available, a graphics toolbox that's new, that will just allow you to more quickly access the objects that you want as you're developing your screens, and to be able to quickly change gears back to your logic if that's what you need to do, just by clicking on another tab.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here for the audio audience. Just want to say this looks extremely modern. So if you're using modern software from another vendor, I think you're going to feel right at home here. I do love all the toolbars and how you can customize that toolbar like we talked about in the last slide. But I just wanted to jump in here really quick, Chuck, and just say that for the people listening. It looks like a very modern package.
Yeah, I think like with any other change for our existing users, there's going to be a little bit of getting used to. But I think what they'll find is as they work with the new software, the new version, just for a little while, they're quickly going to be just about as efficient, if not way more efficient than they were before. So I don't think the transition time will be too severe. It really wasn't for me. Within a couple weeks, I was able to undo, 30 years of of habits from the previous version.
Well, and I think we all had our heartburn going in Microsoft Office, going to the ribbon toolbar, and thank goodness that's way in the past now. So I think more of us would probably be able to accept this quicker than maybe we would have done maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Sure. One of the updates we've done to Cscape 10 from a graphic standpoint is we've added a bunch of free industrial images in an image library that's built right into Cscape. So, and this is available no matter which OCS controller you're using. So, pipes and valves and pumps and all those sorts of things. There's a few hundred, industrial images available for you to pull in included in the free version of Cscape that weren't there before. So again, more options to kind of, if you want to mimic your process a bit, you've got more options there. Now, we've always supported, at least for the last 15 years or so, we've supported the symbol factory from Software Toolbox. So that's a plugin that effectively you can order or download from Horner with a $99 charge. You can include Cscape with the symbol factory built into it. So with Cscape 10, not only do you have access to all the free symbols that we've created, not really symbols, I guess we'd call them industrial graphics, but also you still have access to the symbol factory, the thousands and thousands of images from the symbol factory that a lot of industrial manufacturers have taken advantage of over the years by partnering with Software Toolbox. So that continues for Cscape 10 for a $99 fee if you want to take advantage of that. The different types of image files that you can import and your control over their background and support for motion GIFs and PNG transparent files and those sort of things, those have all been added with Cscape 10. So that's a big change there. For all graphic objects that you use with Canvas. So anytime you're editing a Canvas project, a Canvas screen, you place graphic objects on the screen, you can take advantage of what we call enhanced attributes. So any object that you place on a Canvas screen, you can control dynamically at runtime. Its height, its width, its X coordinate, its Y coordinate, its rotation, its opacity, all that can be controlled at runtime, which is not totally unique. It's something that I think we've been used to for many years, especially with SCADA packages. But now we've kind of updated that to include that functionality with Canvas, so you have access to all those enhanced attributes at runtime. And then with any Canvas object, whether it's a push button or a data field or whatever it might be, you can create a custom background for that. So it could be an image that you import, it could be one of several pre-selected patterns, You've got almost an unlimited choice in terms of a custom background that you can place on any Canvas object.
Now, Chuck, I want to just interrupt for a second to make sure I'm understanding it. So no matter which of the supported products that you make that you use Cscape 10 with, you're going to get some features. Even if you're not using the latest Canvas, you're going to get the new software, the updated software that looks very modern with the ribbon and all the different menus. You're also going to get more graphics for free. Like you
Right.
said, like 200 no matter which package you're using.
That's right.
But then we kind of switched over and we said, okay, now these are some of the Canvas specific
Exactly.
features with the new engine. And that's where you were talking about rotation and opacity and height and width and all that. So I just
Right.
wanted to make sure I made the transition with you that, the PNG and GIF, the GIF, those were part of the Canvas, the new Canvas graphical capabilities. But software, the symbol library from Software Toolbox, right? Symbol Factory, that can
Yep.
be used in any of the hardware, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
So from this point forward, we're talking, and you made that transition beautifully. From this point forward, and last couple slides, really, we're definitely talking about Canvas specific capabilities.
Yes. So everybody, before we started getting into those Canvas specific slides, that was updates for everybody for the most part. But now, like the rotation, like the opacity, like the PNG and GIF, these are Canvas specific. Okay. I apologize. I just want to make sure I'm staying current with you, and I'll just turn it right back to you.
All right, great. No, thanks. Actually, it was a great interjection there. Okay, so, some of the simpler devices even have been enhanced. So, data objects where you're displaying process variables or set points or whatever it might be, you've got more options there than before. There's now the ability to allow your operator, if you wish, to edit a data field using a tumbler. Tumblers are the type of controls that you'll find in some cell phones for editing time and date and certain options, those sorts of things. If you want your operator to have that capability to edit let's say a date or a time using a tumbler, for instance, that is supported in Canvas objects that are editable. And then in some of our other simple objects, our indicators and our push buttons and toggle switches and multi-position switches, of course, there's more options available than there were before. Different graphics, those sorts of things. So just kind of routine updates that like you would expect. With our slider object, a slider object is an object you might use to, slide up or down the value of a set point, for instance, on a screen. We've enhanced that from the standpoint that we now support more different styles of sliders. And then we also support rotary sliders, which really is kind of like a knob. Think of it like a knob. You can now touch the screen, touch the knob, and then do a rotate motion with your finger, clockwise or counterclockwise, and move that value up or move that value down. So it's an option you can use if you choose on your project in lieu of a traditional linear slider. Of course, bar graphs and progress bars, those have been enhanced with more graphic options and custom image imports and all those sorts of things. And just like with the slider object, we've also got a rotary style progress bar as well. So it doesn't have to be strictly linear anymore. For gauges and meters, those have all been updated, with new graphic options. And one thing that is definitely an upgrade is that with other versions of with other controllers, with our other controller families, if you're using a gauge, you might be locked into strictly an integer type variable being mapped to that gauge. Whereas with Canvas, any type of variable, floating point, integer, double integer, it doesn't really matter. Even long reels can be supported with a gauge type object or a meter type object. So that's one of the enhancements for sure, is more flexible support for different types of variables tied to different graphic objects. Now, one of the graphic objects that we've redesigned from the ground up is the trend and the graph object. So with the trend object, you now have the ability to support up to 16 pens per trend. So you could have up to 16 different variables on the same trend. You can have multiple scales or multiple y-axes with different scales if you choose. At runtime, if you give the operator the authorization, they can turn on and off dynamically the pens that are being displayed at any given time. It doesn't impact the data being logged and being trended, but it will hide it from the screen. So maybe they can hone in on a specific process variable that they're interested in, for instance, by turning off other pens that might be kind of muddying up the view, if you will. So a lot more flexibility, a lot more capability with the trend and the graph object than what we've had in the past.
And it says there too, just for the audio audience, true XY and scatter plot. So that's important.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've supported something we've called XY graphs, but it really wasn't a true XY in the past, because the points were always evenly distributed over the x-axis. With the true XY graph, basically you have an x variable and you have a y variable, and you could have multiple y variables actually, and those points are just graphed via the x and y coordinates. They are not necessarily evenly distributed over the x-axis like maybe they would be in the past with a non-true XY graph, if you will. Okay, so the alarm object has been redesigned. So we've got a scrolling alarm banner, which is something people tend to expect these days. The ability to have alarm messages that are completely dynamic if you choose them to be, or they could have embedded real-time data if that's what you're looking for, not just enunciating a high temperature, but also being specific with the specific temperature that was reached, for instance, and customizing the text, some of the text within that message. That can all be done at runtime. So that's a new capability. If you have a alarm list that the operator needs to go through, maybe it's a history list, they have the ability to scroll with their finger like they would expect to do on a cell phone. So that's one of the gestures that is supported, the ability to scroll up and down through an alarm history list, for instance. So the alarm object for Canvas has been, again, completely redesigned. The recipe object. So we've had support for recipe management for years, but we've kind of had we've kind of said to the system designer, kind of design your own recipe display, or the way you want to display the ability for your operators to select the product that they want to run, or to select the system variable, not system variable, to select the maybe to select the ingredient that they want to modify for this particular batch. With Cscape 10 and Canvas, we've got kind of a configurable, predefined recipe object. So the user still has a lot of flexibility in terms of how they display it to their operator, but now they just check the options that they want. Do I want to have a scrollable list of products that I can scroll up and down through as an operator, as I'm deciding what product I'm going to run next? Do I want to have the ability to scroll left to right through the different process variables or ingredients that make up the variations that cause different products to be made? Those sorts of things. And then there are also some integrated operator buttons. You don't have to create; those are already there for loading a new recipe, maybe saving a modified recipe, creating a brand new recipe, all those sorts of things. Those buttons are already available on the screen and can be disabled if that's not a feature that the system designer wants to make available to the operator. So a lot of work's been done on the recipe object.
Can you just talk to me for a second about this? We're looking at two different recipe objects. One looks like more of a classic object, and this other one on the right-hand side looks really fancy and modern. Can you tell me why are there two different objects here? What am I seeing?
Okay, sure. So the view on the left, that is just the view for setup.
Oh,
when you're
okay.
in the software and all you're doing is saying, okay, what products do I have, and what ingredients do I have, right? So the products are on this particular slide, the products are listed up and down in the rows, and the ingredients are listed across in the columns, if you will. Okay, so that's where you would configure what are my product combinations and what are my ingredient combinations. Now, once that's configured initially, it's downloaded from Cscape into the controller, and then from that point forward, additional recipes can be created, additional ingredients can be added. There's a lot of things that can be done after download if that's what the designer wants to have happen. The view on the right is one possible view of on the screen itself of the unit itself of what the of what the recipe manager would look to the operator. So on the left side of that particular object is a scroll up and down area for selecting what product do I want to run. So there might be 40 products there, but only 4 are shown, and you can scroll up and scroll down to find the one you're looking for. On the top part of the right-hand side is a view of what the currently selected product is. So in this example for, I guess, a baking application, fruit and nut bread is the currently selected product that's being run right now. And then below that area is a listing of all the process variables or ingredients that can be modified, or that make up the variations in the process to create the different products, if you will. So if I was an operator and I said, hey, we're normally using, 2 kilograms of fruit and nuts, and I want to change this to 2.1 kilograms, for instance, to modify the batch or something, they could do that. And then below that area where all the ingredients are listed are a series of buttons that the operator can use to, to load a new recipe, to store a recipe, to save a recipe, those sorts of things. And if they don't know what those button icons mean, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a question mark icon that means help. And when they press that, they get a little pop-up for each of the buttons that tells them what that button does. So if they only work on recipes once in a while, they don't have to remember what those icons mean for each of those buttons. So that's kind of a run through of that recipe object as it appears on the screen. The upper left-hand corner is kind of just what the recipe looks like as you're just creating it initially in Cscape.
Thank you for that explanation. That is for the runtime screen, that's a very visually appealing kind of recipe selector, editor, loader or downloader, uploader. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain that, and I'll pitch it back to you.
Sure, great. Yeah, no, I appreciate the question there. That's good. And it's one of the new objects that we're very proud of, no question about that. Just a couple more to go through. If you want, as a system designer, if you want maybe somebody in maintenance or somebody in production control, or maybe even the operator in some cases, to be able to see the files that are on maybe the micro SD card or the USB drive, if you have one of those in the system, we do have a removable memory object where they can basically restrict, which drive is being looked at or which folder is being looked at, and do they have the ability just to view, do they have the ability to copy or to delete or to format, those sorts of things. So this is a removable memory object where you have a couple different views, a folder view and a list view, that sort of thing. So operators are getting more sophisticated, so people are a little less afraid of providing access to some of these things to the operators, but again, they can lock these things out if they need to. And then finally, one of the kind of fun objects that we've got for Canvas that's been redesigned is our video object. So this isn't used for, watching movies at break time. The whole point of the video object is really the way it's used in practical terms is we have plenty of customers today that have help videos on their machine. So they want to show a new operator how to load the machine. They want to show the customer how to clean a filter or to change a filter, some sort of maintenance function or something. So they have help files or help videos they've created, and then they can trigger these videos from Logic if they want, or they can have just a series of push buttons on the screen for the user to kind of go through the available videos. And then with Canvas, what we've done is we've increased the resolution and the frame rate of the videos that you can play, and we've embedded a lot more of the controls for the video right in the object itself. So play and pause and repeat and those sorts of things are all embedded in the object now, where when you're using our other products to display video, you kind of have to build a play and a stop function yourself. It's not difficult, but it's something that is not necessarily included with the video object. And the resolution is a little more restricted on the existing products, and higher resolution, higher frame rate is available with Canvas. All right, so that's a run through of Cscape 10, and really we spent the last 10 minutes honed in on the Canvas specific graphics features for Canvas.
That was excellent, Chuck. I feel like I'm up to speed, and it's just so much to try to take in. But you've major overhaul on the software, plus at the same time you launched a new line the
Right.
Canvas line, right? And
Yeah.
so, I guess I had one question from the hardware side
Sure.
that I wanted to ask you. And, we talked about the CAN ports to do
Mhm.
your extending your I/O, right?
Mhm.
And with that the Canvas 5, that
Mhm.
had very low I/O built
Right.
into it, right?
Right.
Can you also expand the I/O using that CAN interface on that one as well?
Absolutely. So we have, I didn't cover it in today's presentation, but one of the product lines that is relatively new but very popular is what we call OCS IO. So it's
Hmm.
a slice style IO that mounts on DIN rail, either in the same panel or remotely. And if you just want to interface, you just want to add some IO, again, inside the panel or remotely to an OCS, you just use, even though it's CAN, you just use RJ45 patch cables
Hmm.
between the OCS, the X5, or the Canvas 5, for instance, and the OCS IO, and you're up and running. So it's very easy to add additional IO there for sure.
I think we did cover that I/O in your last.
We did.
Yes, okay, good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that Canvas 5 being popular. A lot of people are like, well, you don't have a lot of I/O there, but I'm like, yeah, you usually have a few buttons and lights on near the HMI, right? You don't want them to use the HMI for the e-stop or for buttons that are going to be operated every couple of, minutes, right?
Sure.
So you're gonna have some I/O there on maybe even some gauges, right? Or
Absolutely.
or potentiometers, but then you need more I/O. And so
Right.
that's why I was thinking it would support the distributed I/O, and then you
Absolutely.
could have the bulk of the I/O maybe buried in the machine somewhere. So no, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on. Was there
Sure.
anything else we wanted to cover?
I mean, the only other thing is I just wanted to kind of remind people or let people know, where they can interact with us,
Yeah.
because we got a couple trade shows coming up.
Okay.
So I want to mention that. Let me go ahead and pull that in next here. See if I think Marcy created a slide for that. So let's see here. Oh, this is our slide that talks about all the different ways that you can interact with Horner online. Our website is hornerautomation.com. Of course, we've got our YouTube channel, where you can find our weekly live streams along with hundreds of other videos, ranging from, how do you use the Horner product, and from how do you interface the Horner OCS with a third-party device? Like the last one we did was with an inspect radar system. That's what we
All
did
right.
last Tuesday. That was pretty cool. And then, of course, we're active on LinkedIn as well. And then here's Marcy's slide. So we have two trade shows coming up that we want to tell people about. We've got a smaller one, the Advanced Manufacturing Expo. If you're in Michigan or maybe even in Chicago, because Chicago's not that far from Grand Rapids, Michigan, we're at the Advanced Manufacturing Expo coming up August 7th and 8th. So we've got some cool stuff that we're showing off there. And a colleague of mine and I are doing a presentation on kind of the state of AI in the industry these days. So that'll be fun, along with a little bit of updates on what Horner's working on in terms of AI. And then a big trade show coming up in September is IMTS. So in the past, we have participated in the Hanover people had kind of an automation aspect simultaneously with IMTS. This year, we were in kind of an automation area within the machine tool show. And so we're excited to see how that goes this year. We've got a really nice big booth. We're going to be showing off lots of new products, and that's going to be, we're very excited about that for sure.
That is awesome. And then maybe once you've done those trade shows, we can get you back on to talk to us about AI and what you guys are working on and
Right.
just everything else that's new with you guys that you're showing at these shows.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
Chuck, I don't have any other questions left. Thank you so much for coming on. That I really enjoyed learning what was new with your product line, and I want to wish you guys very well with it. I want to wish you guys very well with it, and just thank you for coming back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having us on again. We really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Chuck for coming back on the show and introducing us to their brand new line of PLC HMIs, the Canvas series, as well as bringing us up to speed on Cscape 10. It's always exciting when a company launches a new PLC and HMI, and of course, with Horner, they're all in one, right? But it's also exciting to see a company launch new programming software. So we got both in one. And I really appreciate Chuck coming back on the show. And you know what? They also sponsored this episode, so there was no commercials. Isn't that great? Please leave us a like, a sub, and a share. And don't forget to thank Horner for sponsoring this episode. It underwrote all my costs so I could make it completely ad-free for life. Now, with that said, you can always get in touch with me over at theautomationblog.com. You'll also find me on LinkedIn. If you're watching the video, I'll put the link below. And you can even join my membership program so you get all of my content, the sponsored and unsponsored content that includes the full news show twice a week. I'm also trying to produce another video every week just for members. And then for level 2 members, I'm doing a special Friday morning Q&A session where they can ask questions, and I'll also go through questions I receive throughout the week. With all that said, I want to wish you all an awesome week ahead. I want to wish you happiness and good health. And until next time, my friends, peace.